We are live. This is the Meat of the Matter podcast. It is Sunday. Our time zones are all discombobulated, so apologies for the 11 o'clock start in my neck of the woods. But we are coming to you live Sundays, normally at 10 o'clock. It's 11 now, but 7 p.m. in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I guess that would be continental Europe, and 6 p.m. with Mark in the UK and Ireland. And we are the Meat of the Matter podcast, where we meet, you matter. And today we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. I think we're going to get a little muddy today, boys. I think we're going to get into the weeds a little bit with some controversy, some very big things that are pushed in front of us all the time. We're going to get into some of the food pyramid stuff, the plant-based push, some politics. Unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with this because, as Mark likes to say, it's bullshit. So we're gonna get into that. So we got a big meet. Write that down. And how are you doing, boys?
All good, sir. All good. How are you?
I'm good. Peter?
Yeah, great.
Awesome. How was your week?
Week's been fantastic. You're back on the coffee, I say, and then we.
I am. Vita, it's good enough for Vita. It's good enough for me, man. That was it. She's reversed all the stuff. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And actually, to be honest with you, I didn't feel anything different. So I was like, well, I like it. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll cut it off and on. And yeah. So anyway, boys, let's talk about this stuff. Let's get into it right away, and we'll show this, and we can all comment on that. That is the standard food pyramid. Now, who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to go by the top. This is a macronutrient that is not essential, but it has to be a part of everybody's lives. So according to these experts, they're saying that we should be eating at least 50 to 60%. Our diet should consist of around 50 to 60% of this macronutrient, which I just find absolutely incredible. The second one is another nutrient that's not essential. So you look at the first two on the pyramid, none of these are essential, none of them. But these are the guidelines that we're being told to take by these experts. Absolutely incredible. You look at the next part, our proteins, our fats. This is what we should be starting off with. So if you look at the food pyramid, it should be the other way around. The carbohydrates should be at the very, very bottom, and we should be eating the stuff at the bottom. Proteins and fats. That's it. Very, very simple. When we look at the food pyramid, so many people now in the world are really, really getting sick. They've got metabolic issues. Diabetes is going through the roof. Obesity is going through the roof. And this has all been told by our medical experts and our fitness experts. They're all telling us that we should all have a balanced lifestyle. We should eat food in moderation. There's nothing wrong with eating processed food in moderation. Complete and utter horse shit. The sooner we move away from these recommendations, the healthier you guys are going to be.
Right on. Peter, coming from a type 1 diabetic, how would you feel about
and
that?
the amazing thing is that they recommend this type of stuff also for type 1 diabetics. So add in a lot of fiber. There's a lot of fiber here in this pyramid. So I think that's all compromising, right? You eat a lot of carbohydrates. You think it's necessary to eat carbohydrates, and you're going to compensate it with a lot of fiber.
Yep.
And for some people, that might work up to some degree, but yeah, for many people that is problematic with all the anti-nutrients in plants. But I'm wondering, why is this so gloomy? It's so dark, this pyramid. It's not really advertisement actually for any diet, I'd say, to present it like this. But I totally agree with Mark that you should start, well, not literally at the top, but at the second row. That's the base.
Yeah.
And then the pinnacle of the pyramid is what's second most important, in my opinion, to get all the fat-soluble vitamins and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and at the bottom, at the very, very bottom, this is where our energy source.
That's the worst.
From.
Yeah.
Well,
so when we sorry, Tony, I was just going to mention like the energy sources. Like at the very, very top, we're being told that carbohydrate is an essential nutrient. We need it for energy, but people don't realize that the stuff at the very, very top where fats are, that's also an energy source. So I think people need to understand that very, very quickly, that we don't just have one energy source. We actually have two.
Oh,
You
and
know,
the red meat, by the way, it looks totally brown. I was looking for the red meat. I didn't find it, but it's there, but it's
so
it's presented in a bad way.
before I switch to show you another food pyramid, I just want to mention one thing. Like, you know, I've reversed my type 2 diabetes, and I am always, my CGM goes on about once or twice a year just to see how my blood sugar is working, see how things, if I can notice some things differently. Well, yesterday, guys, I helped a friend, and it was a physical day. It was pretty, you know, like lots of steps, lots of walking. My blood sugar was rock solid. My energy was rock solid. Anyway, the guy that we did a job for, he offered to buy pizza. And I was like, well, you know what? This is the time when I can test it out and I'll see. And the guys that I was working with were horrified because they're like, what? You're going to eat pizza? And I'm like, this is a science experiment. Let's see what happens. 2 slices of pizza. My blood sugar skyrocketed to 10.
Wow.
Now, that was from like 4.8 solid to 10 in less than an hour. 2 slices of pizza. Now,
that's incredible.
When I tried ice cream last week for my experiment, my blood sugar only went to 7.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and by the way, with the pizza, did it also linger? Did it stay on
no,
like around
it
8 or
came
9?
down pretty fast. I saw my insulin like work pretty well, and it was like, you know, within 3 hours I was back down to, well, yeah, about 2 hours. I was back down to 4-ish. So, but it just goes to show you, for all those people that don't think carbohydrates are sugar, well, it was a pretty good example of that, and it blew my mind because I knew my blood sugar would go up, but I didn't realize. And it, you know, whatever it was, the crust, the type of pizza probably matters. What they've added to it, of course. But when we're dealing with bread, and what people might not realize, not only is the bread in the stores, one slice of bread is like 11 grams of carbs or 11 grams of sugar. One slice. So when they're telling you, you know, sugar in moderation, but all this bottom pyramid is all sugar. It's all sugar. And you know, you can just imagine. I mean, Peter would be, you know, having to inject insulin 15 times a day if he was eating 6, 7, 8, you know.
Yeah,
right?
I'm talking about sugar, by the way. If you look at the food labels on packages, it always mentions carbohydrates, of which this and this sugar. So if as a diabetic, you would only inject insulin for the sugar part and just ignore the carbohydrate part, you'd be dead in a few years, basically.
Yeah, no doubt. And now, guys, I have this pyramid. Now we're going to get controversial here. And we're just for the record, we're not trying to dog anybody. We're not, you know, we are about human nutrition. We are about, you know, getting healthy by the best way possible. But there is some stuff here where we need to address. So this is brought to us by the Loma Linda University. Now, you know, arguably a blue zone, arguably the Seventh-day Adventist vegan pyramid. Now let's talk about this, boys. What do you think? What do you guys think about that?
That's a weekly pyramid, right? Two servings, 1 serving of eggs. They probably recommend only 1 serving of eggs per week. It's my guess, but yeah, sure. Because 5 or 12 servings of bread, that makes no sense. So this is per week.
Yeah, I guess
it's very colorful, as expected. Very colorful, but.
So you can pretty much see that it's pretty much the exact same thing. We're being recommended that we should be taking in more fruits, more fiber, more carbohydrate foods, and very, very little animal-based foods, pretty much.
And if you look at this, like what I see first and foremost is where's the protein? Okay, so nuts and seeds, legumes and soy. Well, soy is estrogenic. We know, like that's undeniable. Like you eat soy, it's high in estrogen. So men eating their diet specifically from soy, it's not a complete protein. There is no complete protein here. So
and you know, and sorry, Tony, I actually had a conversation with someone on Instagram there a few days ago, and they were getting into this big, massive argument with me about protein. And I was asking them, okay, listen, where are you getting your protein from? Guess what she said to me? She says she gets her protein in almond butter.
Oh my Lord.
Almond butter. So she eats an awful lot of almond butter every single day to get her protein numbers up. So I asked her, I said, listen, like, what's your weight? She said to me she weighs over 150 pounds. So I said, listen, you should be getting at least a pound, or sorry, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is roughly around 150 grams of protein a day. I was asking her, are you getting 150 grams of protein in a day? She says, yes, I am. She mentioned that she gets all that she eats for our protein is tofu and almond butter. Now that I don't know about you, but you would want to be eating a shitload of almond butter to get that protein numbers up.
Well,
Because,
Mark, that's the problem is though is when we break protein down, like crude protein, nitrogen on the package isn't amino acids. It's just the amount of crude nitrogen in such product.
exactly.
So when we're not aware of these amino acids, they should be like the amino. Realistically, I'm on Peter Ballerstadt's guidance here. Like we should be labeling amino acids like a profile breakdown of every food. And when you have the rate limiting, and it can get really complicated. But hey, just eat meat, and
Yeah,
you don't have to think about that shit.
exactly,
So
exactly,
almond butter, I know for a fact, is not complete because there's no plant-based sources that are complete.
exactly. Yeah,
No, I think with the grains and the legumes together, you can make it sort of complete, but then you
Yeah.
get the soy with all the negative side effects that you mentioned. And I never realized that. And a lot of people don't realize that, but the meat replacements you find in the supermarket, there's a lot of additives besides that. The proteins are based on wheat. It's basically,
exactly.
it's not just based on wheat, it's based on gluten. And
hmm
if you look it up, it's a gluten powder.
Gluten
And
is
And
yeah.
and
you can
when
make it like in the seitan way. I don't know if it's called seitan in English, but you take a bunch of flour, you add water, and you start, how you call it?
Fermenting.
Well, you start mixing it, and at some point the gluten get extracted, and you end up with basically sort of 99% of protein in the form of gluten.
Yeah. And gluten is a lectin. A lectin is a protein. So when you're eating
exactly,
kidney beans and you're getting all these anti-nutrients that are labeled as protein, just look at what could happen. And the hardest thing to go with, like ancestrally, culturally, they protein combined to get the amount of the right nutrition. But then once you bring in a modern day monocrop agriculture and all the farming practices that have been just completely bastardized, it's not the same anymore. So we're seeing, like, a perfect example is the Indian diet in India. From what I've heard, they're the highest diabetes on the planet. They haven't changed their diet. They've just changed how their food has been brought to them.
yeah,
So it's clear that you can't use that excuse like, well, we've been doing this for years, but what's been done to the stuff now is a big deal. Now, and
exactly. And when you break it down, like no plant contains all 9 essential amino acids. No plant,
yeah,
no matter what you're eating. So that basically that debunks it straight away. So when you look at the profile between meat and a vegan diet, you're not getting any essential amino acids in the diet whatsoever.
yeah. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with this question, guys. This is a great question. Hey guys, serious question. Found out I might have a histamine intolerance while on carnivore, and afraid I might have to stop carnivore or go keto, swap to low histamine diet. Any advice? Also on a budget. Mark?
Okay, so I would say this depends on what you're eating. So from what I've seen working with clients, this is down to pretty much ground beef. So I would recommend if you're eating ground beef and you're eating a lot of red meat, change it to lamb. Should change, yeah, change it to lamb, and you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever.
Um,
Another
Go
another
ahead.
issue that could be causing the problems is the actual egg white of the egg. So
Yeah.
so I would first of all I would change the ground beef to lamb. That's the first thing, and then if you still have the issues, you may need to look at your eggs. You may need to remove the whites.
Mm.
Mark, why is that? Is that because lamb is less aged typically? Is that would my guess? Would
It
be
just
my guess.
it just digests a lot better in the gut. So
Okay,
there's
and then yeah, if you're looking at that, like that's good, Mark, because also what I would recommend is if you're doing bone broth, go to meat stock, like boil meat, and like you could even use lamb, but it seems to be more gentle on the gut, and it doesn't have it for some reason. Like, you know, when you're looking at the GAPS protocol and Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, how she heals the gut is meat stock. It starts with the meat stock. You boil meat, and then you drink the broth, and then you can eat the meat. And it's going to take a little bit of playing around, but histamines and allergies, I mean, I think there's two sides of it. There's you, and then there's your gut stability and how well your gut is. But what you don't want to do is sacrifice gut stability for higher reactionary foods, right? Like, are you eating organic? If you're on a budget, you're going to go back to vegetables. Where are you getting them from? That could be a problem too, right? Like, you're dealing with a lot of anti-nutrients and a lot of foreign invaders as far as pesticides and herbicides. It's really tricky. So it takes a little bit of time. For sure.
Yeah, you have to be careful also with cooking meat and also with bone broth. If you cook meat too long, it can actually become a source of histamine as well.
Yeah.
And the same, that was why I was thinking that lamb is maybe indeed better choice, because my guess is that it would typically be hanging around at the slaughterhouse for less time than a cow, for example. They could easily leave it there for 1 or 2 weeks before they actually cut it into pieces. And so that's another thing. Get your meat very fresh,
and that's
even better to ground it yourself.
And you made a good point, Peter, about like overcooking it. I mean, when it comes to our meats, we're meant to eat them like semi-raw. We're meant to, as humans, we're meant to eat like meats like semi-raw. So if you overcook it, it's going to take a long time for that meat to digest in your gut, which is not good.
And there is another option to try, which is raw. I mean, you know, if you're dealing with these things like extreme level, like, you're going to have to play around. And that's where it can kind of get, you know, very, very nuanced and very individual, because, like, you know, all of our guts and all of our history and what we're exposed to. And to be honest with you, like, I think the leaky gut problem, it's also, you know, things can get worse before they get better, you know, like it takes a little time, and it's I feel ya. And if you
have to be anyway very careful also where you source your meat, because I know a lot of carnivores that are perfectly healthy, but as soon as they start to buy meat from a place that just leaves it there for a week or so, also with organ meat even, then they get troubles.
Yeah.
And that's I do that when I feel the difference now when I go to, say, just the regular supermarket and I buy ground beef. It doesn't happen very often, but I feel different and I feel not as good. And I mean, it's pretty simple. And once you buy, like, you know, you get your regular source meat, you start to adapt, and it's tough because, you know, it's scary because, you know, you're trying this thing, you're hearing all these stories about these glorious effects, and then you get like hung up on this, and, you know, what do you do? And I would suggest, just remember, it doesn't matter what your allergies are. You need essential nutrients. You need essential amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. So you're like, to play around with that, it's really important to realize that the foundations are what builds us. And to sacrifice protein for the sake of an allergy, it's, you know, you'll find something that works, and it can be very tricky.
Yeah, you have to be careful also with the ground meat from the supermarket. So they usually add ascorbic acid to it, and okay, you can have your opinion about that, but let's assume that that's relatively safe. But only the fact already that they put it in the meat should warn you, because that means that they put it there to leave the meat on the shelves for 1 or 2 weeks. Because if I buy it here, the best until date is like 10 days later. And I always take I don't buy it anymore, but if I would go there, I would take the one in the very back at the shelf. But maybe you can go to like a slaughterhouse, and you don't need to go for like grass-fed, grass-finished beef necessarily, but you might be able, if you're lucky, to get it for similar prices to supermarkets, pre-ground meat.
And remember too, the fat. Like, if you're having butter, that, like, I've got a client, she can't have any dairy, so she has to have tallow, and tallow seems to works really well for her. But even a piece, like, she can eat goat stuff a little bit, but even like a couple bites of goat cheese, she feels different, and she feels like, you know, she gets a little stuffy, and sometimes it's kind of like, you know, is it worth it? She'll do it once in a while, but, you know, she's one of those people that has to like scale it right back She found what works for her, and anytime she deviates, she's been a carnivore now for about 10 months, but she notices now when she kind of goes off the path, all these symptoms come back. So she's like, scaled everything down to the thing. You know what? That's a good question as well. Do you have a rough estimate of how long to stay on low histamine meats? It's very personal. And, the amount of healing that your body's going to do is very nuanced. And, it's unfortunate, but you hear all these stories of everybody like doing these miraculous turnarounds. Just give it time. And I mean, and have a little bit of faith. And if you need some help, give one of us a call for sure. Cause it can be very tricky for sure.
Yeah.
I have one more. Oh yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, like, if you're going to add the ground beef back in, just add it in small amounts. So like listen to what we're saying. First of all, go by, first of all, let's just try the lamb. Don't overcook your food. Just make sure you nail that first of all. And then if you do want to add the ground beef back in, I wouldn't recommend adding in too much. I would say probably break it down like this. Let's say if you're going to be eating ground beef and lamb, maybe have 300 grams of lamb and maybe add an extra 50 grams of ground beef. See how that reacts. If there's no reaction on your gut, well then maybe the next week, maybe add it up to maybe 70 grams. The week after that, maybe up to 80 grams. And then if you get to a point where one of the weeks you're like, oh my God, I can actually feel it coming back, well then obviously you're taking in too much.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because you got to play around with it, and it's be honestly, my advice is you got to be honest and not personal, because this is it's a work in progress. And I would just suggest, like I said before, don't worry about your essential nutrients no matter what. That's like the most important thing. And then see where it kind of leads you. And it can take a little time for sure.
Let me add in one more thing, because it's a really nice question and brings in a lot of different aspects of the carnivore diet and lifestyle. But one other tool that you could use is organ meat. And especially, I don't know the details about it, but I read at several places, so you have to investigate yourself, but I read at several places that eating beef kidney can help with histamine problems. And I personally strongly believe in this biosimilarity idea, that if you eat beef kidney, it's beneficial for your kidneys, your heart, etc.
Yeah.
So look into that as well.
It's just like eggs, right? Like when we look at egg yolks, it's got every nutrient in there for life. A life will, if it's fertilized and hatches, it will be a life. The nutrients are in the yolk. It's the same thing with the animal parts that we're eating. Like they're, the coenzyme Q10 in the heart, very big. It makes sense. You know what I mean? It does. Now let's lead into this. Okay, Mark, tell us about this pyramid.
This looks a lot better. A lot better.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. If people were actually eating this way, I firmly believe our hospitals wouldn't be as busy as what they are right now.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Nutrition with Judy. She's fantastic, Judy Cho. And her infographics are amazing. So this is pretty much breaking it down. And I mean, I think all three of us would probably follow this pretty closely, right?
Yep. Yeah,
So
the majority of people's diets on a carnivore diet is the one at the very, very bottom. We're all eating a lot of red meats. We're doing the complete opposite of what these experts recommend.
And it's interesting because it's just nutrition. And once we get over the fact that are plants healthy or not, but are they necessary? Clearly they're not. And thousands, if not millions of people now are showing that you do not need plants. I mean, some people, if you tolerate them and you want to eat them, go nuts. But I'll tell you, I find if I ever have vegetables, which I actually did an experiment with my CGM, and I had some carrots and asparagus just to see how I felt like crap. I did. I shouldn't say crap. I just did not feel good after dinner. And I was like, just 2 little carrot sticks and 3 little spears of asparagus changed my whole, how I, like usually after I eat, I feel great. And that I just didn't want to do anything. I just kind of, it's like, if I could describe it, I wanted to watch Netflix. And I'm like, what? This is weird. And Is it the carrots and the asparagus? Is it just my psychology? It could be a combination of both, but I mean, it's just not necessary. So, why are you doing this? And once we take that personal belief system that we've been programmed with since our childhood out of the equation and just focus on this pyramid, it opens up a lot of stuff that could be very beneficial for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
There's one interesting aspect of this pyramid. I mean, especially the lower part, but there's one thing missing, or two things.
Okay.
Fruits and vegetables. I'd expect from, if it's a fully carnivore pyramid, I'd expect those not allowed marks also on fruits and vegetables, but I don't see them. And I think that's, knowing, having seen some videos from Judy, I think that she doesn't want to claim here that you shouldn't eat vegetables or fruits. I mean, I think that's a good idea, that it's not like a dogma that you shouldn't eat any vegetables or fruits at all. It's more like on the normal pyramid, you don't see the truly processed foods, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you can eat vegetables and fruits, but don't do it like as an essential part of your diet.
And you know what? That's a good point, Peter, because I often, when I'm helping or I've got a new client, I often say, like, you're now becoming not only your N of one, your experiment on yourself, but you're finding your way. So you're going to have these foundations, these roots, these rules, and then you can expand. And it's not I'm always adjusting. I'm always trying different things. I'm seeing if certain foods or certain meats do better or worse. And it's kind of like, like you start getting into your own iteration, like the carnivore diet. It's a framework. I think it's a great place to scale it down, start off, and then you just, like, I can't tell anybody how they're going to feel when they eat steak, but I'll tell you, most people, when they do, they feel better. So.
And the good thing about the carnivore is you're re-educating your gut. So
exactly.
You're what I mean? I've done this in the past. I tried to introduce like certain foods. They just didn't work for me. But it feels amazing that you're able to do that. You're in a situation where if you do want to have that choice, it's your choice.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be down to. It should be down to your choice and not being forced onto you.
And also the times, like, what we're trying to do is you're trying to reset your body, really.
Mm-hmm.
And when your body gets reset, and that can be very different for everybody. It can be a very long time. We talk about, people go into ketosis or get fat adapted within weeks. I disagree. I think it takes a lot longer. Think about it. We've been doing the standard thing and the standard dogma for decades. That does not get reversed in a week. It can take a lot of time. And, look at, and I agree with, I think you mentioned it one time, Peter. I might have been even in our group, our WhatsApp group, but when you said, you look at some of the people that are trying to replace like pancakes or bread with carnivore pancakes and carnivore bread. There is another side to that, why are you doing that? That could be a sign of still holding on to, we need those foods. And I mean, I've found when I started, I was trying keto this and keto that and whatever I could do to keep it interesting. And the longer I went, the more I realized I just like it simple. Like, it just makes more sense. Nourishing my body feels better than trying.
And that's how so many people make these mistakes when they try these diets.
Yeah.
They try keto, they try carnivore. Many people will try carnivore. The first mistake they'll do is they'll go really, really high protein. Then they'll feel like shit. They're miserable. And then what you mentioned, Tony, when people try the keto diet, they're like, okay, if I see this packet in the shop that says keto on it, or if I see these bars or these pancakes, if they say keto on it, automatically people are thinking, okay, this is healthy. I'm actually going to try this. And they can never let go of that addiction because these foods are just full of crap, basically.
And it takes work. It takes a whole new perspective on what food is. And, it's like, why are we eating? And I'm not saying there's not a time to be a 5-star chef and make something amazing. Like, sure. But why are you eating every day? Why? Are you eating for entertainment? Are you eating for some kind of, past emotional response, or are you eating for nutrition? And if you're eating for nutrition, it starts to get a little bit more simple, and you can build on it, right? And that's why we all don't recommend going 0 to hero carnivore. What would end up happening is people get a little freaked out because, there's a lot of stuff that's going on for sure.
Yeah, you need to look at food as food as just fuel, and not look at food as calories or anything like that at all. Just look at it as just essential food. It's fueling your body. It's making you feel good. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters.
And when we're talking about these food pyramids, just think I'm going to tie this into some of the politics and the stuff. Look at where this information is coming from and who benefits from it. Just ask yourself that. When you're eating 6 to 11 servings of grains a day, when you're eating all that stuff, who's bringing that stuff to you? Mm-hmm. Who's benefiting for you doing that? Why isn't it just eat this much? No, it's 6 to 11 servings. They're very specific on how much you should be eating. And that's where I start to go, okay, why are they pushing this? Why is this plant-based agenda getting shoved literally down everybody's neck? Like we can switch gears here and go into the politics of it. Why? We know the science. The science is, like, anybody who's really digging into this knows it's bullshit. They know where all these studies are just epidemiology. They're not complete nutrition. Sugar is toxic, yet they're telling you to eat it in moderation.
But you can't beat the facts. I've said this many times. We live in a world where we've been forced to be on a low-fat diet. Every time you go into a shop, everything is low-fat. Yet nobody has an idea what's going on in the world. Nobody has an idea why people are suffering with their mental health. They're struggling with their overall health. Why a lot of people are visiting our hospitals. Why these conditions have just suddenly came out of blue, like allergies, gluten intolerance, dairy intolerance. There's many issues people have had now in the last 50 years, but nobody's questioning the food. Everybody's just thinking that this is just genetic.
Yeah, we're de-evolving.
We're just evolving, but nobody's looking at the core of the problem.
Yeah.
Nobody's actually looking at the root of the problem, which is basically the food. Like, what are we eating? Do we need to ask more questions about the recommendations? Is the food pyramid wrong? People need to be hearing this, because this is what's going wrong. Everybody thinks that they're eating a healthy diet. So most people, you speak to a normal person, they'll say to you, I have the healthiest diet in the world. You ask them, okay, what do you have for breakfast? Most people will say, I have a bowl of oats. I have some whey protein with it.
Cereal.
Right. You know what I mean? Then you'll ask another person, okay, what else? What do you have for your breakfast? They'll say, I'll have one egg. I'll have one egg and 2 slices of toast.
Yeah.
Mark, I
want you to hold that for right there. Peter, just give me 2 seconds, because we're going to get into write that down right now, because I think this is a good segue.
These guys are getting richer while you're getting sicker. Write that down. 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 These foods are highly processed, complete garbage, and I can promise you now, I wouldn't even give it to my fucking dog. Write that down.
It's time for write that down, and since we just started on it, let's get into it right now.
All for innovation and marketing, but the idea of having cereal for dinner, is there the potential for that to land the wrong way?
We don't think so. In fact, it's landing really well right now, Carl. When we look at all of our data, of course, we would know that breakfast cereal is the #1 choice for in-home consumption. We understand that for breakfast. It turns out that over 25% of our consumption is outside the breakfast occasion. A lot of it's at dinner, and that occasion continues to grow, as well as the snacking occasion. But cereal for dinner is something that is probably more on trend now, and we would expect to continue as that consumer is under pressure.
Did you see how happy he was? Oh yeah, just eat cereal for dinner. What are your thoughts, Peter? Let's start with you. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I did that in the past, and it was a disaster for blood glucose management. Let's just keep it at that.
Mark, come on, I know you're
And
gonna...
this guy is the CEO of Kellogg's. Can we just remember that this guy is the head person of Kellogg's, recommending that everybody who's struggling financially eat breakfast cereal for dinner. I mean, just take that in for a second. You're getting absolutely no nutritional value out of these foods whatsoever. I class these foods as simply as shit in a box. Plain and simple. I also put up another post today of a celebrity saying that if we eat a box of Weetabix every single day instead of an avocado, it's actually healthier for you.
Yeah, that's complete garbage.
This is coming from a celebrity.
Yeah. Now, remember what I said. Just who benefits from this? Who?
Exactly. Yeah, they're getting richer.
Not only should you just eat cereal for breakfast, you should just eat cereal. Just buy 13 boxes. Now we're going to get into the guidelines and all this stuff. Nina Teicholz, years ago now, wrote the book Big Fat Surprise. She exposed how the food guidelines and who tells you what. It's all these big food companies, specifically Kellogg's. Kellogg's created the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Now they're telling you dinner as well, right? And who's telling you?
And not only that, you look at the boxes. Who are they marketed?
Right.
They're marketed to our children because
Yes.
what's on the front of these boxes?
Yeah, all cartoons, colors, and
all cartoon characters. So the kids are like, "Oh my god, I want to buy this." Do you remember Tony the Tiger years ago?
Of course.
You know what I mean? Tony the Tiger was advocating we should be all eating cornflakes. They're good for you.
Cornflakes with sugar.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's
and nothing has changed.
No.
Nothing has changed.
When we look at the big food companies and who's driving this narrative and I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was really wild. It was Kellogg's great-great-granddaughter, and she was on some podcast or interview. She actually said, "I don't want anybody to eat that cereal," because she knows. Yeah. She's like, she's out of the business. She's like, it was the worst thing that happened to the human race is us switching to cereal. And I ate cereal every morning my whole childhood. Every single morning.
I used to eat it before I went to bed.
Yeah.
I used to love cereal. I used to eat like a bowl of Rice Krispies before I went to bed because I thought it was healthy.
Yeah.
I used to have it in a big bowl, like with lots of milk. And I used to add sugar to this shit.
Because then you drink the milk with the sugar.
Yeah.
And you're like that little teaspoon or tablespoon, whatever you put in there, and drink it. Wow.
And every single morning, my family would say to me, like, "Listen, you're not going to school unless you've had a bowl of cereal."
Yeah, eat. You need to eat this. Peter, what would happen to your blood sugar if you were eating cereal for breakfast and for dinner?
Yeah, so the funny thing is that maybe even I would prefer the plain cereals over oats. And if you would drop it in milk, the plain cereals, if it doesn't contain too much fiber, it will at least give a very predictable blood glucose spike. I mean, all of them give a blood glucose spike, so they are bad anyway. But with oats, you add in a lot of fiber, and as a diabetic, you'll know that adding one type of fiber or another, and depending on how your stomach is doing on that day, if it's in a good mood or not, it will make the digestion of the food highly unpredictable. So also your sugar spikes, of course, they will be dampened a little bit. If you would eat pure sugar or maybe also the pizza, it would be a higher peak initially, but in the end, you have to look at the area under the curve. Unless, of course, the curve is really long. I mean, meat also has an area under the curve, but if you have a prolonged glucose spike that is maybe at 8 or 9, that's equally bad as one of 12 for a short time, I'd say. So, and it becomes really, really complicated to deal with these things, especially if you are going to add in movement or so. The fiber in the food, it's difficult to digest. And say that you are going to move or do some exercise for half an hour in between. it will temporarily stop the digestion, and then all those glucose will arrive a half an hour or 1 hour later.
But when you
Just an example.
But when you talk to somebody about fiber and you get into this argument with these morons on social media, they'll always say to you, like, listen, we need fiber. But people need to realize that, yes, fiber can slow down like blood sugar spikes and stuff like that. But where did those blood sugar spikes come from?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where did they come from? So if we didn't have those spikes in the first place, then what's the need for eating fiber?
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, exactly. And when you just scale
Doesn't
it back,
make any sense.
what we talked about earlier about essential nutrients, and they're telling us 30 grams of fiber. That's what you need. Go after it. You got to get 30 grams of fiber. Why? What is your argument? Because we need it, but it's not essential. We don't need it.
And when you eat fiber, it comes out the exact same way.
Yeah. And
it's not broken down.
And it's Lee Corpus, or Lee, yeah, he's the Kent carnivore, right? He's got a colostomy bag. This guy is telling you what comes into that. He had his colon or some kind of surgery, and he explains it quite often. When you eat these vegetables, they come out whole, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's pretty interesting when you look at that. And when you go in for surgery or some kind of thing, and they want to rest the bowel, they tell you not to eat fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it good for one state but not good for another? And it's wild how this changes, and it's built on a house of cards that once you see it, it's obvious,
And when you look at it and what they do with the intestine, and they show you the amount of fiber that goes into the large intestine, it takes ages for the fiber to push through.
No doubt.
Like it takes ages. And you can clearly see that the food has not been broken down properly.
Yeah.
It's just coming out the exact same way. And this is what leads to people having bleeds, constipation. There's so many factors that people go through, and they don't realize that the damage is actually coming from the grains, the cereals, some vegetables. Like, it's just insane.
I would argue for a human being in an optimal state and a natural ancestral environment, fiber is for the fruit. Like, it slows the sugar when the fruit is presented. Yeah. And let's be real. That's the reason the plant wants to get us to eat it, is to propagate its species. Mm-hmm. It's not because we need it. It's because we might be able to deal with it in some context, but let's look at it from a natural perspective. That's the only reason fiber is around. I mean,
it all depends on context, and that's the whole problem. I mean, fiber does have some benefits. I mean, putting aside all the negative aspects of fiber, let's just talk about the positive effects. And they are there in the research on how fiber reduces glucose spikes, on how fiber can lead to bacteria producing these short-chain fatty acids, on how fiber can also contribute to the gut biome. That's all in the context of a standard diet, on a diet high in carbohydrates or other junk, maybe seed oils, but okay, let's not go into that. Yeah. But all these type of things, and I imagine even bowel movements on such a diet, it can be a good thing that fiber maybe pushes through all the things. It will get rid of all kinds of toxins. I mean, if your plant, if anti-nutrients from plants stay in your bowels too long, it could actually be beneficial. Maybe that I'm just hypothesizing right now, but that.
But Peter, that's a good point, because you know what? This is why we have to look at this. We look at this from all angles, and we're just honest, and be honest with yourself. And you know what? This is why we debate this stuff. This is why we talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's not essential for human beings. There's
what they forget is that although fiber has beneficial aspects, that doesn't mean that there are other products, other food groups that can have the same effects. Like for the gut biome, you can get enzymes and prebiotics from dairy, from meat.
Yeah. I did a video on this, like the microbiome, and like I think we pulled a cart before the horse, and we deal with it's if you look at buzzwords around this nutrition space, like everybody talks fiber, microbiome. Oh, you need to be balanced, rainbow, all this but it comes down to it that, like I mentioned in my video, when they look at biodiversity and the gut biome of these tribal First Nations indigenous people, including the African tribes, they've got the most diverse microbiome, but the most limited diet. Well, what's that then? If they don't have all this fiber, rainbows, and butterflies in their diet, how come their biodiversity is hard, right? And you look at it from just sugar, right? Sugar, the bad bacteria thrive on it because we love sugar. Our little bugs love sugar too. And that's pathogens love sugar. Everything loves sugar. So, from the micro to the macro. Now, guys, let's get a little more controversial because this is something that I want to address because you know what? We said when we started this, we're not going to hold back. We're not going to talk bullshit. Now, this is something that I hold pretty dear to my heart because it pisses me off flat out, but let's have a look at this.
To eat less meat, we need to stop land being used for cattle and growing grain for the billions of animals. And then finally, we cannot hide away from human population growth because, it underlies so many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
All right.
It's so wrong, isn't it?
It's just, who wants to go first with that one? Because this is...
Well, I'm just going to quickly echo Dr. Peter Bellestedt again. It's all about protein, and you can do a lot of agriculture, but people look at it in the wrong way. They just count the crude the crude nitrogen content, which also includes nitrates and incomplete amino acids. And if you make the calculations, I don't know what the exact story was, but it becomes probably quite similar whether you do agriculture or meat meat production, but something like that. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, Mark.
And you only have to look at her. I mean, just look at her. She doesn't look healthy at all. And she's advocating this. That's what I couldn't understand. So, I was like, listen, you don't look healthy at all, and you're the one that's on stage and you're advocating this rubbish.
So
make any sense?
Here's the problem I have. Okay, what the hell did we do before you? Mm-hmm. Now, is this a human population problem, or is this a climate problem, or is this a nutrition problem? Because all those arguments fall flat on their face when you think about it from a rational, critical thinking mind. Mm. Cows, when we had millions, billions of buffalo roaming the earth, was that affecting the climate? And I'm not a climate denier, okay? The climate changes, but I think it's more a natural cycle of the earth. Do human beings have an impact? I believe we should take care of the planet. I'm 100%. All for solutions that will be beneficial to our natural ecosystems. But what are we going to do? Because that World Economic Forum, put us all in this position. You made the plastics. Now we're the assholes for using it. You made these industrial things, and now we are the assholes, and we have to suffer for you polluting. Now you want me to drink out of a paper straw that's more chemicals than plastic straw for the greater good of the environment. Stop making straws. We'll use a copper tube, okay? But this is where it gets down to, and now the population thing. Okay, right? Like, so cows eat too much grains, so we need to eat more grains. Where does that argument stand? Cows don't eat the stuff that we eat. They eat all the other chaffs and all that. So what do cows really need? Just grass. So what's the problem here? Let the cows eat the grass, shut up, and stop growing corn, wheat, and soy to feed them.
Plus their digestive system is completely different to ours.
Exactly.
They can you know what I mean? So it just the argument is just complete and utter madness.
And how do we know? Okay, obviously there's more people, but if you think about it this way, there's an infertility problem. Probably about, I would say, a good 60-70% of the people I know that are trying to conceive a child are doing it in vitro. fake fertile, like in a lab. Like, you know what I mean? This is now a business. Men's testosterone levels are tanking. How are we the problem doing what you say when we can't even have a baby naturally? And that's where we're headed to. So is the way out of this to continue monocrop agriculture, all this big? Bill Gates is the biggest farmer in the US. He owns the most farmland. What is he doing with that? Using corn, wheat, and soy to make fake meat. Why? How is that better? And how is it the cow's problem that God and Mother Nature created this perfect system to eat grass and forage that we can't eat, and they are beautiful creatures? And if this carbon cycle methane crap is a problem, what the hell did we do before there was a bunch of cities? You know what I mean? It's not the cows. Come on, you know? And I honestly, this whole thing is so annoying because they just trick you into being guilty for stuff they're doing.
They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop, Tony, until we're all sick.
know.
It's a simple. I mean, that's what it is. And they're not. And it's all about money. So when you get sick, that's what they want. And like you mentioned a few weeks ago about the bowl. What was it, the bowler you were mentioning a few weeks ago, Tony?
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't even aware of that, but it's just
the Bovaert stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just insane. It really is. It's just absolutely insane. They're not going to stop.
And
they're going to do. And at the end of the day, money talks.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, these people will get their way. I'm just hoping that we don't run out of our own food, because if we do, we're in serious trouble.
And I mean, from coming from a political standpoint right now in my country, it's unreal. This guy who's our prime minister, who was unelected, is the climate green net zero pusher. He's been a globalist, UN banker. Now I want to put something in perspective with people here. What is a carbon credit? What is a price on pollution? They're polluting and they're taxing us in the name of pollution. So we're suffering for the stuff that is created. It doesn't even exist. All this financial drive to fixing climate change, carbon net zero, it's never going to happen without these solutions that are like, people get this sustainable bullshit mixed up. The way out of it, to be honest with you, I believe this is my opinion, local, seasonal, simple. Yeah. Smaller communities, not. So if you're shopping at Whole Foods, virtue signaling how green you are, when the shit's getting delivered there in trucks and it's all getting pushed by a corporation, and you're getting taxed on the pollution that they're causing, think about it. And this is a really big problem. I mean, the way out of this is agriculture that's an ecosystem. Animals on fields. If you want to grow crops, you rotate crops. Every farmer knows this. You can't grow the same thing over and over again in soil. So you're damaging the soil, making us rely on the food pyramid, telling us to eat the food pyramid, and then you're telling that the cows are the enemy, where that's the way out of it, is to rotate regenerative agriculture, small community farms, your carbon footprint that they created. British Petroleum created the carbon footprint. Just so everybody knows that, while you're yelling at everybody for being a polluter.
I mean, isn't it very, very worrying when people are thriving, they're actually getting better eating an animal-based diet, and these people are just still pushing it to the side? I mean, that's just incredibly worrying. It really is. And it's just, if this continues, there's not going to be any hope whatsoever.
And it goes to show you who benefits from all this shit.
Yeah, and I always go back to my old argument that if you try to solve the climate problem by compromising our health, then you'll have a lot of expenses in the medical industry, in medical care, and all these things, and that is billions of dollars, but really a lot. I mean, I don't know the exact figure in the Netherlands. It's like probably 10-20% of government spending is on medical care, and if you're going to save a lot of money there, you're also going to reduce a lot of pollution, probably, because basically that's my argument, that where money flows, you have pollution, unless you actually invest the money directly in, like, growing the rainforest or so. But besides that, having also a lot of people in wheelchairs and chronically ill and taking 20, 30 years before they actually die. That's just a big expenditure.
And if
it's just,
and this is a good point, Rick. Nobody mentions about it's the whole cycle, right? Like when you're looking at, I saw an interview with Cat. Well, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Cat Stevens on Joe Rogan, and he was, I don't know what he eats, I don't know what he's all about, but he was like, God and Mother Nature were so perfect creating animals and an ecosystem. Every time human beings get in the way, we mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the indication that look at what we're doing: lab-grown meat, monocrop agriculture, driven by petrochemicals, the NPK fertilizers, this seeds, all of it is getting in the way of God and Mother Nature. Cows were made perfectly. Ruminant animals were made to cycle methane. And for all the vegans out there that are telling you cows are the problem, you stop eating vegetables for 3 days. Let's see how your methane dispensing goes. It'll stop. Because right, it's unbelievable. There's 8 billion humans farting because they're all plant-based, and it's just going to drive the methane up. You don't think we dispose methane? Like this is the stuff we don't talk about. It's like we've all seen it, we've all felt it. I don't fart. It doesn't happen anymore. I farted when I ate carrots and asparagus after pizza. Interesting, but let's blame the cows for eating their ancestral diet. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a big problem. It really is. It's a huge problem.
And I mean, I try not to get political and I try to stay away from that stuff, but just think about who's benefiting, who's driving us to this ill health, this health crisis that nobody talks about. It's like everybody's got their own little problem, but they don't look at the whole picture. Like these diseases were rare. These non-communicable diseases were rare. Everybody is suffering from IBS, Crohn's, some kind of hypertension. Everything on the planet, everything that we know is going up. Infertility.
And this is why we have to keep on supporting our local butchers, because
Yes.
if we don't, then we're going to be in the hands of the wrong people, because they're going to be putting these foods in the supermarkets. That's the only place that we're going to be able to go to get our food. We have to keep these people in the butchers in business. We have to.
Yeah, that's it. That is true. And that's where this is kind of crazy, but voting with your dollars, it matters. You know, like now more than ever. I mean, I wish people would get a little bit more aware of the issues and not just jump on these propagandist dogma or crisis creating people where it's like, you know, they've created the problem and then they scare the shit out of you. If you don't do this, we're going to die. But what if I can't feed my house and I'm sick? So
exactly.
How is 20 years from now and our climate matter more than nourishing your body and feeling better and unplugging from the system? You know, they control if you think that the drugs, they're made from petroleum, all these pills and stuff, the foundations are petroleum. All your pipes now, they're no more copper. There's no more lead. There's only PVC. This is petroleum chemicals. And they're forcing you to sacrifice everything in the name of making them more money and charging you carbon credits. Like that, they've created this crisis, and now it's, you know, and then they're coming after our food, guys. They're coming after beef because it is the way out. And I honestly believe that. I think the reason they have such a hit on for cows and ruminant meat is because they know they can't mess with it. You know, they can try and make all the lab-grown meat they want. And the way they do this is ridiculous. They're taking whatever it is, serum out of unborn calves, and they're cloning it basically. And they're saying that that's like, man, when you mess with God and Mother Nature, you're gonna get in trouble. And it's
but isn't it great that we have the likes of Joe Rogan and we have Sean Baker, we have Dr. Berry, all backing this shit up? Because if we didn't have them, I could only imagine what would be happening in the world right now.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, man. It's like when people get emotional about, ooh, you're a carnivore, you're an asshole. That is right where they want you. That is, you are sleeping and you are just You know, I do not give a crap if you're a vegan for ethical reasons. You don't want to eat animals. I understand that. I sympathize with you. I can see your point, but that's not nutrition. And that has nothing to do with me. That's your choice.
I had a person asking me recently, how many animals die for your diet? And well, I mentioned like 1 or 2, well, probably 2, and I eat lambs as well. So and then it increases a little bit. But say that person on a standard diet is eating chicken. He probably eats like 20, 30 chickens a year. So, I mean, who is the cruel person here? If it's even cruel, because it's part of nature. But yeah, it's just when you think about it.
Yeah.
But for ants and insects, aren't these animals also?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
man,
it's like,
if you want, I see this, and okay, I'm very, for people that don't know, I've opened up spiritually. Like I meditate. I'm very in tune with. I want to be with nature, the earth. I'm very much aware of this, and a lot of times I look at these gurus or whatever spiritual people, and they're all vegetarian because they say I eat alive. I eat a living diet. You chop a leaf, that is not alive. And if you're talking about everything is conscious, all life is aware and sentient and whatever, and you're chopping down plants, pulling their roots out of the ground, and you're trying to tell me that that's alive, I say bullshit. You're killing in your own hypocrisy. You're killing beings. So it falls flat on its face. Now I believe in, I'm very, very much aware of the food I'm eating, and I'm grateful. I express gratitude for the nutrients that I'm getting provided with. I don't want to waste. I don't want to harm. I want to take care of the earth. And it's funny how people look at me like I'm an asshole because I've killed a cow. And realistically, in a perfect world, the cattle or the cow would be mine. And at the end of its life, I would honor it by consuming it and assimilating it to my nutrition. I don't want to just, and I believe in the animal cruelty. I believe in taking care of the planet. And the way the cycle, the ecosystem, the cycle, protecting your soil is protecting the earth. And it starts with monocrop agriculture. That has to stop. It was meant to feed starving people. And they tricked you way back, like 6,000 years ago. Hey, man, you don't have to hunt. You just have to plant this and you can feed everybody. Let's get together and eat this and you'll be fine. Oh, look, all the diseases start popping up. And what do they say? Well, it's because we were all together. And then all of our diseases started because we joined together in cities. Bullshit. I believe it's corn, wheat, soy, and oatmeal. This is the grain stuff.
Mhm.
And that's very controversial, especially I have to bite my tongue quite a bit on this side, because it's like, how did the agrarian revolution start? Where did this come from? Who said that looks delicious? Let's grind it up and eat it. Who said that? Maybe it was someone to say, hey, if we trick these tribes to come together and then eat our stuff, we can make money. We can get them dependent on it. And look, hey, you need bread. It's good for you. Eat it more. It's like, wow, man. And I think it's been a work in progress for thousands of years. And now they hate carnivores. What's the problem, man?
And it's just hilarious if you think about some people arguing that 10, 20, 30,000 years ago, we ate grains as well.
Yeah.
Free agriculture. I mean, how are you going to do that?
Yeah, hunting and gathering and looking at that grassy field going, wow, look at that wheat.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. Let's eat it. Oh, that tastes disgusting. Maybe if we grind it up, it'll be a little bit, oh, man, I'm feeling energized today. Bullshit. And they're actually looking at Egypt, and they're detecting that the grain diet, there was diabetes. There was obesity back in Egypt with these ancient stuff. It's pretty wild.
Also, arterial plaques. They also did scans on the mummies. That they found those as well.
And when in history did we not eat meat? And it's like New Zealand carnivore meals on TikTok. I love it. Eat your meat. There is no cave paintings of broccoli, man. There's none. That's pretty funny. Yeah, wheat belly. It's a problem. So sorry, guys. I get a little charged up with this shit because it's so hypocritical. It is unbelievable.
We know.
Yeah, this is another good point that Charles is making. Indeed, that we waste a lot less food. Of course,
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very, very good point. We don't waste any food when it comes to carnivore. None
And
at
it's
all.
and you know what? The way out of not wasting food is salt. Look at what we used to do with salt. We used to cure meat. We used to dry meat. We used to get paid in salt. It's called the salary. Interesting how these soldiers were precious in Rome, and they get salt, and they get to make sure that the meat is cured for their family. Like and now salt kills you, and meat's so bad for us, and it's like, what the hell is this? Like, it's so funny, right? And I don't know about you guys. How do you guys feel about it? I don't waste a thing. You know,
Nothing. Not a thing goes to waste on my plate when I'm eating it. Not one bit.
I have to admit that the only thing I waste are egg whites, because I have no solution for it. Nobody wants only egg whites. So if anybody has a good idea, I would be very happy to hear about it, because I do not feel I don't feel happy about throwing those away. But yeah, besides that, not so much.
Damn you, Peter! You're such a
you're
the enemy of the world here, man. Peter doesn't eat egg whites; he throws them away. Damn you! But I mean, hey, you're still eating the yolk, so theoretically, you know what I mean, it is what it is, and it's biodegradable. So as far as pollution and waste and stuff, that's you're throwing around organic matter, which is another thing that drives me crazy. Recycling and plastics and. If I had it my way and I could do this and, maybe one day this would be possible, is I'd have my own farm or I'd have my own property. I would have chickens and I would have, whatever, if I wanted to grow some seasonal crops, maybe for other people if they wanted them, that would be great. And you know what? There's no trucks. There's no packaging. It's right out of the ground or right out of the fields. Eggs without cartons, eggs without plastic, right to my plate, right to the pan. And it's so crazy how they, like Whole Foods, this Whole Foods scam. It's unbelievable. Like, oh, we're Whole Foods. We're so good. It's in a package. It's you're making shit and selling stuff. It's unreal. And hey, that's a good idea, Charles. There you go, Peter. Give your egg whites to
I was just writing. I don't have any animals here, and that would be dangerous for them, right? No, but I was wondering. You talked about getting your meat locally, but one thing I'm still amazed about is that I produce a lot of plastic still in the garbage.
Yeah.
And how did they? It's a silly question, maybe, but how did they do that in the past? I mean, if you truly get it locally, you don't need it. But say that you still have to get it from the supermarkets. What would be an alternative? I have no idea.
I think butcher paper would be, like when I get it from the butcher, I'm sure there's plastic on that too. Because like anybody who thinks that they're not drinking or using plastic and they're drinking out of a can or tuna, there's plastic. It's plastic. There, it's almost impossible to get out of it. But I mean, I would assume that would be paper. I know I'm an asshole for shopping at the grocery store now, and if I don't bring my own bag, you got to get charged because you're such a dick. Oh my Lord, you're just wasting everything that you're making, and it's just the hypocrisy is unreal, man. And it's just, and then it's interesting how the world has spun this, and it's deeper than just when we go carnivore and you start to open up to the fact that you're trying to be not only out of the health system because you're on your own and you're starting to resolve these issues. You're not plugged into a system. You start wasting less. You start becoming aware, like we've all talked about, man, I don't put anything on my skin that I have to buy. No deodorants, no, I don't use shampoo. And, I'm probably the biggest enemy of them because they're looking at me like, no, come back to us. You need to use this stuff. Dove wants me to use the soap, right? Like, Dove, come on, you need the soap. It's so good for you. Oh, look, we've got a new product, And it's interesting how you start unplugging from that and realizing what's required, from toothpaste to deodorant to, and I mean, I've got to make a new batch of deodorant that I make with tallow and suet. And it's natural. Once again,
and essential oils. I use essential oils as well for deodorant.
Yeah. Well, boys, I think we did a good one today. Look, a little bit of different stuff, and we're trying to be non-dogmatic, and we're coming at this from a different attitude where we obviously all believe in our own things, but I think buying into what they're selling you doesn't end well. And if you don't start taking advantage or taking responsibility for your own health now, who knows what's going to be happening? Because I have a funny feeling we're not even in the beginning of this stuff. It's going to get pushed. And Mark, your videos have been amazing this week, like just with all that all that nonsense. And I think it's necessary to blast this word out. So everybody that's watching, please like and subscribe to us. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all your questions. And yeah, Mark, any last words, and where can they find you?
No, just I hope you guys enjoyed it. And you can watch us. We're here every week on a Thursday and a Sunday. We give out great information. Every one of us are well spoken. There's no bullshit. We say it as it is. And we hope we can get more people on board. So if you guys want to reach out to me, same thing every week. You can reach out to me at fitnessbeyondtime01, or if you want to send me an email, you can send me an email at nsmark93@gmail.com.
Peter.
Yeah, just thanks everybody in the chat, and thanks for watching. And I have not been very active on social media last 1 or 2 weeks actually myself, but I plan to make a video about all the pros and cons of fiber actually. So we talked a little bit about it. That one is coming up.
Awesome. And you can find me on social media, usually Tony_food4thought, or here on YouTube, obviously at Tony Stewart Coach. If you need to get a hold of me, I've got my website, TonyStewartCoaching.com, and Gmail, TonyStewartCoach@gmail.com. And we're here every Sunday, the Meat of the Matter podcast. We're trying to get, international style. This is from 3 different perspectives, 3 places in the world that are all kind of coming together with a simple mission and a simple message that you are in control of your health if you choose to be. And, we're here. Thank you very much, everybody, for the comments and the questions, and we will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.